My name is Laura Will, and I'm 34 years old. If you'd seen me a year ago, you probably would have said I had it all together. I've been working as an electrician for 12 years. Started right out of high school, crawling through attics and basements, running wire in cramped spaces while some contractor barked orders and paid me barely enough to keep gas in my truck. I didn't have a silver spoon. What I had were long days, sore shoulders, and a stubborn streak. 5 years of that grind taught me everything. How to run conduit clean, how to tame panels that looked like spaghetti nightmares, how to troubleshoot when nothing made sense and the inspector was breathing down your neck. Eventually, I got my master's license, opened my own operation, and slowly built a name. These days, I've got a crew of 4 working under me. We focus on commercial jobs, office buildings, retail spaces, medical offices. The money's good. The kind of good that means I paid off my 3-bedroom house 2 years ago, after a massive shopping plaza contract nearly broke me and made me at the same time. House paid off. 2019. Silverado, bought in cash. Every tool I own is Milwaukee or Klein, paid for outright. My dad drilled one rule into me. Don't finance toys, don't rent your happiness, and never blend your money with someone you're not sure about. He learned that the hard way when his second wife emptied his accounts and left him with a lawn chair and a stack of legal bills. I'm not telling you this to flex. I'm telling you because you need to understand. I wasn't some desperate woman clinging to a man hoping he'd fix my life. I was good before him. I was going to be good after. After is what this story is about. I met Ethan a little over 3.5 years ago at a friend's barbecue. He worked as a sales associate at a furniture store, pulling in maybe 35 grand plus commission. He was handsome in that boyish, easygoing way. Bright smile, loud laugh. The kind of guy who could talk to anyone. We clicked. We started dating. The first 2 years, honestly, they were great. He'd come over after his shift. We'd throw something together in my modest but functional kitchen, watch a movie on my slightly outdated TV, fall asleep on the couch. Nothing glamorous, no jet setting, no extravagant date nights, just normal. He wasn't high maintenance back then, or maybe he was, and I just didn't see it. About a year ago, we decided it made sense, financially and practically, for him to move in with me. No point in him wasting money on rent when I owned a house. That's when the cracks started to show. At first, it was little comments. Your living room feels kind of basic, babe. Have you thought about a statement couch? Something more modern? Then it escalated. Instagram photos of $80,000 kitchens shoved in my face after a 12-hour day of fishing wire through ceiling tiles. Mood boards on his phone of marble counters and custom cabinetry. I'm not saying we need this exactly, he'd say, but like a vibe, you know? I'd tell him calmly, we could do some updates, sure. Paint, maybe new hardware, a couple new pieces, but I wasn't nuking a perfectly functional kitchen for a trending aesthetic. He did not take that well. Around the same time, boys' nights started popping up more frequently. 2 nights a week, then 3. Supposedly drinks with coworkers after late shifts, sometimes wrapped in the hazy phrase, networking. I was exhausted most nights anyway, so I let it slide. Then came the phone stuff. He'd flip his phone face down whenever I walked by, take calls in the bathroom with the water running, sleep with it under his pillow like it was a pacemaker instead of a slab of glass and metal. There are some behaviors you don't need a relationship manual to classify as red flags. I saw them. I just folded them neatly and shoved them into a mental drawer labeled, "You're overreacting." My best friend Jake didn't buy it. Jake and I went to trade school together. He's a welder now, with his own fabrication shop. Big guy, scarred hands, no patience for fluff. We grabbed lunch one day between jobs. He chewed his burger, watched me for a minute, then said, I'm not trying to stir the pot, but Ethan's been off. You know what I mean? Off how? I asked. He feels distracted, like his body's in the room, but his mind is somewhere else. Just keep your eyes open, Laura. I rolled my eyes, told him he was overthinking, told him Ethan was just stressed, told him all the things people say when they'd rather hold on to the picture they've painted instead of looking at the actual canvas. But when I drove home that day, there was a knot in my stomach I couldn't untie. The neighborhood I live in is quiet, middle class, mostly. Families, retirees, blue-collar people who mind their business. Right next door lived Mr. Patterson. Late 60s, always dressed like he might be called to court at any moment, pressed slacks just to water his lawn. Religious. Baptist church twice every Sunday. 3 times on holidays. His yard looked like a magazine spread, every hedge trimmed like it was interviewing for the job. Order and discipline weren't just values for him, they were a lifestyle. His daughter, Kayla, was another story. Mid-20s, still living at home, part-time gig at a gym, full-time social media presence. She had the kind of pretty that had taught her life would always bend around her. Permanent smirk. The walk of someone who'd never had to clean up her own mess. I helped Mr. Patterson out here and there over the years. Replace a garbage disposal, fix a tripped breaker, jumpstart his car. He always tried to pay me. I always waved him off. Neighbor stuff, I'd say. So when he knocked on my door on a Friday afternoon, wringing his hands, and asking if I could help him move a couch the next morning, I said yes without thinking. Kayla was supposed to help, he said, jaw tight, but she seems to have other priorities. I knew what that meant. I'd heard Kayla's car peel out of their driveway enough times past midnight. Don't worry about it, I told him. I've got it. Saturday morning, 10 a.m., I walked over in work clothes ready to wrestle furniture. The couch was a monster, one of those massive sectionals with solid wood legs and the density of a dying star. We tried getting it through the living room doorway, and it wedged itself in the frame like it had decided that was its final resting place. We tilted, we pivoted. I shoved my shoulder underneath one end while Mr. Patterson pulled on the other, both of us grunting like we were in a strongman competition for absolutely no prize. The house was quiet, not peaceful quiet, tense quiet, the kind that buzzes in the air. Family photos lined the hallway. Mr. Patterson in suits with his late wife, Kayla in her high school cheer uniform, all smiles and eyeliner. Church Easter photos where everyone looked perfect and stiff, as if joy itself had been ironed. This was a house built on appearances. After 20 minutes of losing the battle with the couch, Mr. Patterson wiped sweat from his forehead and muttered, "Maybe we should try the back door. More room to pivot." "Yeah, good call," I said, catching my breath. I shifted my grip, wedged my shoulder under the weight again, and reached for the back door handle. The door creaked as it opened. Sunlight spilled across the tile floor, and then my entire world flipped. There, in Mr. Patterson's perfectly fenced backyard, in broad daylight, was Ethan, my boyfriend, the man who slept in my bed, cooked in my kitchen, talked about our future. He was lying back on a lawn chair, shirt open, hands on Kayla's waist. Kayla was straddling him, moving like they were the only 2 people on the planet, her head tossed back, hair swinging, face flushed. His eyes were closed, lips parted in a lazy smile I recognized because I'd seen it directed at me. For a second, my brain refused to process what my eyes were seeing. Everything went muffled. All I could hear was my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. I froze, still hunched under the couch, hand locked around the doorframe. My fingers dug into the wood so hard my knuckles went white. Then I dropped my side of the couch. It crashed to the floor with a dull, heavy thud. Mr. Patterson cursed under his breath. "Careful, Ms. Will." He took 2 steps toward the open door to see what had made me stop. The second his gaze landed on them, his body went rigid. If shock had a sound, it would have been the silence that fell over that yard. His face flushed, then drained, then flushed again. His hands shook at his sides. For a man who built his whole identity on discipline, faith, and control, this was the worst kind of betrayal, the kind that happens on your own property. Kayla's eyes fluttered open and she finally saw us. She gasped, scrambled off Ethan, yanking her shorts up, cheeks blazing crimson. Ethan shot upright, blinking, his expression morphing from pleasure to panic in about half a second. Kayla stammered, "Dad, I didn't—" Ethan looked at me like I was a ghost he hadn't expected to see for another 50 years. For a moment, none of us said anything. Then the words ripped out of me. "What the hell is this?" My voice echoed across the yard. Somewhere down the street, a dog started barking. A curtain twitched in a neighboring window. Whatever this was, it wasn't staying private. Ethan opened his mouth. Nothing coherent came out. Just a pathetic jumble of, "Laura, wait, it's not—" Kayla straightened, chin tilting up, that familiar smirk flickering through her embarrassment like muscle memory. Mr. Patterson took a slow breath, like he was dragging air through broken glass. "You dare," he said, voice low and shaking. "You dare bring this shame into my house, into my yard, in front of my guest?" "Dad, calm down," Kayla snapped. "It's not that serious." "Not that serious." The phrase hit me like a slap. I laughed. A short, ugly sound. "Not that serious," I repeated. "You're in your dad's backyard, in broad daylight, screwing my boyfriend, and it's not that serious?" Ethan tried to step toward me, jeans half done, hands up, like he could soothe this with a hug. "Laura, please, just let me explain." "Don't," I said, holding up a hand. "Don't you come near me." He froze. For a second, I thought I might lunge at him, or at her, or just start screaming until my voice burned out and took all the pain with it. Instead, something colder slid into place inside me. I looked at all three of them, at Kayla's defiance, at Ethan's desperation, at Mr. Patterson's horror, and realized this moment would be branded into all our lives. "I'm done," I said quietly. Then I turned, shoved open the side gate, and walked out. Behind me, the shouting started. Mr. Patterson's fury, Kayla's outrage, Ethan's panicked pleading. I didn't look back. My phone started vibrating before I even reached my truck. Ethan, Ethan, Ethan. Voicemail notifications stacked on top of the calls. Text bubbles popping up faster than I could read them. I drove home in silence, hands locked on the steering wheel so tight the tendons ached. The world outside my windshield blurred. Houses, mailboxes, trees, all blending into one long smear of colors I couldn't separate. I pulled into my driveway mechanically, killed the engine, and just sat there for a minute, listening to my heart slam against my ribs. Then I got out, walked into my house, set my phone face down on the kitchen counter without unlocking it, and went straight to the garage. My workshop smelled like sawdust and hot metal. Familiar. Solid. The pegboard of tools on the wall was neat. Every wrench and driver exactly where I'd left it. I grabbed a rag, started wiping down my already clean workbench, just to give my hands something to do while my brain tried to reboot. From the kitchen, I could hear my phone buzzing, over and over, like an angry wasp that had gotten trapped in a glass. Ethan could spin whatever story he wanted. To me, to Kayla, to the neighborhood. But for the first time since he moved in, I had absolute clarity about one thing. Whatever happened next wasn't going to be loud. It wasn't going to be dramatic. It was going to be permanent. And he wasn't going to like the version of me that came out of that garage. For about 15 minutes, the only sound in my house was the relentless buzzing of my phone in the kitchen. Ethan called. Ethan texted. Ethan left voicemails. Ethan went quiet, then started over. Like he believed persistence could replace loyalty. Like repetition could erase the image of him lying under Kayla in her father's backyard. I didn't touch the phone. I needed space. I needed silence. I needed something I could control. And right then, that meant grabbing a wrench and tightening bolts that didn't need tightening. At some point, the garage door creaked open. Jake didn't knock. He never knocked. He stepped in, took one look at my face, and said nothing. Just walked over, sat on my shop stool, and waited. 5 minutes passed before I could form a sentence. "I caught Ethan," I said, "with Kayla, in the backyard. Broad daylight." Jake stared at me. Blink. Slow exhale. Then, "Okay, we're not doing panic. We're not doing breakdown. We're doing strategy." That's why he's my best friend. He didn't ask, "Are you sure?" He didn't say, "There must be a misunderstanding." He knew I wouldn't be in this state unless the truth was ugly and undeniable. "First thing," he said, standing up, "we document every damn thing." That snapped my brain into gear. And so the anger became focus, the evidence folder. I finally picked up my phone, not to respond, but to preserve. I opened Ethan's texts, all the late-night, working late messages, the vague, hanging with the guys ones, the sudden excuses about overtime that had never appeared on a paycheck. Screenshotted, sorted, uploaded to cloud storage. I scrolled further back. 4 months worth of weird messages, lies that I'd ignored, gaps I never questioned because trust makes you blind in all the wrong ways. Screenshotted, uploaded, backed up twice. Then I checked the phone plan. We were on a family plan, my money. The call logs hit me like a punch. Dozens of calls to Kayla's number, late-night texts, random FaceTime attempts. Some were sent while I was working 12-hour shifts. Others came at 2 in the morning. It was a pattern. Not a mistake. Not an accident. A timeline. I copied everything. Jake watched silently, jaw tight. He didn't interrupt. Didn't offer hollow comfort. Just handed me a glass of water like he knew I'd forgotten to breathe. When I was done, he said, "Call your lawyer." Greg, the calm voice of legal wrath. Greg, my business attorney, had the kind of level-headed tone that could soothe a stampede. I told him everything, concisely, factually, rage simmering under every word. He listened, didn't gasp, didn't judge. Finally said, "Laura, here's what you're going to do, and you're going to do it exactly." I grabbed a pen. Number 1, change your locks today, right now. Ethan doesn't live there legally. You own the house. You don't want him sneaking in while you're gone. Done, I said, already Googling locksmiths. Number 2, freeze any financial access he has, bank accounts, cards, subscriptions. Working on it. Number 3, keep all communication in writing. Don't speak to him in person. Don't argue. Don't respond emotionally. Got it. And Laura? Yeah? You're not the one who should be embarrassed. Remember that. It was the closest thing to comfort I'd take that day. The locks. The locksmith arrived within 2 hours. He didn't ask questions, didn't comment on my red eyes or the tension buzzing through the air. He just removed the old deadbolts, installed new ones, and handed me a fresh set of keys. As he packed up his tools, he said softly, "You're doing the right thing." I didn't ask how he knew. People know. Cheating leaves a smell, a superstition, a look in the eyes that strangers recognize. Cutting Ethan off. Monday morning, first thing, I went to the bank. I need to remove someone as an authorized user, I told the teller. She took my ID, tapped her keyboard, then her eyes widened a fraction. There are recent charges on the card ending in 07. Are these yours? They weren't. Hotel stays. Restaurants. Clothing stores he'd sworn he never shops at. Nearly $1,200 in a month. I smiled politely. Please cancel the card and remove him permanently, and print the statement. I added them to the evidence folder. Then I checked shared subscription accounts, utilities he had login access to, and every digital foothold he'd once had. Deleted, revoked, locked out. Without a fight, without a scream, without even a warning. Just gone. Packing what none of us wanted anymore. That evening, Jake came over again with his truck. We packed Ethan's belongings into boxes and garbage bags, clothes I bought, shoes he bragged about, the expensive skincare he pretended he didn't use. Every item had fingerprints of betrayal on it. I didn't throw his things away. I'm not that kind of person. But I also refused to leave them in my house. We drove everything to Ethan's friend Justin's place, the guy he claimed his boys' nights were spent with. Jake stacked the boxes neatly on the porch. I took photos, documented the drop-off. No surprises, no accusations later, just facts. As we pulled away, Jake said, "You good?" "No." "Good. You're not supposed to be." When Ethan came back. Tuesday at dusk, the doorbell rang. I expected it. I had my phone ready to record. Ethan stood on my porch, hair messy, eyes red, wearing the same hoodie he'd thrown on in the backyard. He looked worse than I felt. "Laura," he started, voice cracking. I didn't open the door. Instead, I spoke through the wood. "Your things are at Justin's. You don't live here anymore." "Please," he begged, "it's not what you think." I saw it. He switched tactics. Kayla pressured me. I was confused. I didn't know what I was doing. "Funny," I said. "The phone logs show you were confused for about 4 months." He choked on a response. I texted him while he stood there pretending to cry. "Laura, do not come back here. We are done. Communicate only by text if necessary." He read it. I watched his phone screen light up in his hands. Then came the sobbing. Loud, dramatic, messy. It didn't move me. After 15 minutes, I called Jake. 10 minutes later, he walked up the driveway, arms crossed, face stone cold. "You need to leave," he told Ethan. "This is between me and Laura." "No," Jake said. "She's done. Get in your car and go." Ethan looked at me through the window one last time, and for the first time in days, I felt nothing. He left. Jake stayed until the house felt safe again. That's what real friends do. They show up when your world breaks, and stay until the floor stops shaking. The neighborhood wildfire. Small towns have 2 specialties: gossip, speed. By Sunday, everyone knew. Mr. Patterson's church congregation knew. The women who walk their dogs at 7 a.m. knew. Even the mailman knew. And he avoided eye contact for a week. Kayla tried running damage control. Said I was controlling. Said she and Ethan were soulmates. Said I never treated him right. But then came the church incident, the one that set the whole neighborhood buzzing. The church showdown. Mrs. Chen, sweet woman, 3 houses down, 80 years old and faster than any news anchor alive, told me the story with a gasp. Kayla walked into church during service, stormed right down the center aisle like she owned salvation, and shouted, "Dad is a hypocrite. He preaches forgiveness but won't forgive me." Gasps, whispers, shock. Then Mr. Patterson looked right at her and said, "Forgiveness does not mean shielding you from the consequences of your actions." And he gestured to the deacons. They escorted Kayla out. The congregation applauded. That applause echoed through the neighborhood louder than any scandal. Kayla's life started collapsing after that. Jobs lost, friends dropping her, Ethan clinging to her like a drowning man. Meanwhile, I was rebuilding. Quietly, steadily, powerfully. and I knew their crash was only beginning. Part 2 ending hook. That night, after hearing the church story, I sat on my couch, not the one Ethan pressured me to buy, and realized something. I wasn't the one falling apart. I was the one standing still while everyone who betrayed me sank. And the part that shocked me most? I felt nothing for them. No pity, no anger, just distance. Like they were characters in someone else's tragedy. And I knew the next chapter of my life would be written without them. The days after the church incident were strangely quiet. Not peaceful, not yet, but quiet in the way a house feels after a storm. Everything is damp. Broken branches still lie in the yard, but the air finally stops screaming. And in that quiet, I got to work rebuilding my life. Not out of spite, not out of revenge, but because I refused to let Kayla and Ethan be the defining chapter of my story. The rebuilding begins. I threw myself into my business. Not to distract myself, although that helped, but because real stability is built on effort, not apology tours. We landed a massive commercial contract, a warehouse renovation that needed full rewiring. 12-hour days, miles of conduit, blueprints spread across sawhorses, my crew buzzing with work and overtime. Exhaustion felt better than heartbreak. Sweat washed emotional residue better than tears ever could. Every night I'd come home sore, covered in dust, and emotionally numb, but in a good, steady, grounded way. And every night, Diesel, the German Shepherd mix I adopted from the shelter, greeted me like I was the best decision he'd ever made. Funny how a dog can make you feel more secure than a man who shared your bed. A home that finally felt like mine. Once I had the mental space, I did something symbolic. Small, but meaningful. I sold every piece of furniture Ethan had convinced me to buy. The overpriced sofa, the hideous, trendy chair, the abstract art that looked like someone sneezed paint on a canvas. Gone. I replaced them with things that felt like me. A comfortable, durable couch in a neutral color. A wooden coffee table I built myself from reclaimed lumber. Soft lighting instead of those bright vanity-style bulbs Ethan swore were aesthetic. Each upgrade felt like pulling out a thorn. It was my house again. Not our house. Mine. Ethan and Kayla. The downhill spiral. The neighborhood grapevine, which never misses a beat, kept me updated without me asking. Kayla had moved in with Ethan at that rundown weekly motel 2 towns over. Their soulmate connection quickly turned into screaming matches in parking lots. People reported Kayla accusing Ethan of ruining her life. Ethan begging her to stay. Kayla throwing drinks. Ethan crying on a curb. I never went to see it, but the image was easy enough to picture. 2 people who built their relationship on betrayal were shocked. The structure didn't hold. A house built on termites always collapses. The final break between them. One of their arguments spilled into a grocery store parking lot. Kayla allegedly screamed loud enough for pedestrians to stop. "You promised your dad would fund our business. You lied." Ethan shouted back. "You used me. You said you'd help me get my life together." To which Kayla replied, "You don't even have a life." After that, they broke up. Or, according to witnesses, she dumped him and drove off, leaving him stranded. He wandered into the motel lobby and slept on the plastic couch. Poetic in a pathetic way. The non-confrontation. A few weeks later, fate put Ethan directly in my path. I was at the hardware store loading wire spools into my truck when I heard, "Laura?" I didn't even turn at first. His voice had lost that confident bounce. It sounded small. When I finally looked, Ethan stood there wearing the same hoodie he'd been wearing since the day he left my porch. He looked thinner, exhausted, like the consequences had finally caught him. "You look good," he said awkwardly. I continued loading my truck. "You won," he said quietly. "I wasn't competing," I replied. "You know what I mean," he said. "My dad won't talk to me. Kayla left. I lost everything." "No," I said, shutting the truck bed. "You threw everything away. Big difference." He flinched. "You ruined my life." I actually laughed, loud enough that a man walking by turned his head. "I ruined your life? Ethan, all I did was open a door." He looked like he wanted to say something else, something emotional or nostalgic, but there were no words left that could fill the crater he'd made. "I miss you," he finally said. "You miss the version of me who ignored red flags," I replied. "She's gone." And with that, I got in my truck and drove away. He didn't follow. When indifference finally arrives, there's a strange moment in healing. No one tells you when it will come. You'll be washing dishes, or filling your gas tank, or loading wire into your truck, and suddenly you'll realize you don't feel anything anymore. Not anger, not love, not heartbreak, just neutrality. A quiet heart, a peaceful mind. That moment hit me late one night. I was lying on my couch with Diesel snoring at my feet when Ethan's name flashed on my phone screen again. I waited. 1 ring, 2, 3. Then his name disappeared. And for the first time since the backyard incident, my pulse didn't spike. I didn't shake. I didn't cry. I barely blinked. I looked at Diesel and whispered, "I think I'm done." He wagged his tail, not because he understood the words, but because he understood me. Dogs always know. Enter. Daniel. Quietly, naturally. A month later, Jake invited me to dinner at a local bar and grill. "You're getting out of the house," he said. "You need real food and a beer that isn't from a can you left in the fridge for a week." I agreed reluctantly. That night, he introduced me to his girlfriend's coworker, Daniel, a paralegal, mid-30s, steady job, calm energy, warm brown eyes. The kind of man who doesn't need attention to feel important. I didn't see sparkles or fireworks or any of that dramatic nonsense. What I saw was a man who listened when people spoke, a man who didn't interrupt, a man who didn't dominate the conversation or perform, a man who asked genuine questions, a man who unbelievably felt safe. When we exchanged numbers at the end of dinner, it wasn't filled with tension or awkwardness. It was simple, natural, human. Later that night, I sat on my porch, new locks, new life, and realized something. Sometimes the most beautiful beginnings are the ones that whisper, not shout. And for the first time since everything fell apart, I felt something close to hope. Healing doesn't come with a countdown or a finish line. It sneaks up on you. One day you wake up and realize you didn't think about the betrayal first thing in the morning, or that you drove past the Patterson house without feeling your stomach drop, or that you can look into the mirror and actually recognize the person staring back. For me, real closure didn't arrive with dramatic fanfare. It arrived quietly, like a door clicking shut in a long hallway. And strangely, the core of it began with Daniel. Daniel, a different kind of quiet. Daniel and I didn't rush into anything. He wasn't the type to push. He wasn't the type to love bomb or declare anything before it was real. He wasn't Ethan. Our first few dates were simple. Coffee at a quiet cafe, a walk with Diesel by the river, dinner at a small family-owned restaurant where the waitress knew everyone's name. Nothing flashy, nothing chaotic, nothing performative. On our third date, I decided to tell him everything. The betrayal, the backyard, the lies, the motel, the fallout, the parts of me that broke, the parts of me that hardened. He listened, really listened, without flinching or trying to make it about himself. When I finished, he didn't pity me. He didn't try to play the hero. He just said softly, "You handled it better than most people would." I didn't feel like I handled it well, I admitted. "That's what handling it well looks like," he replied. That was when I realized something important. Respect doesn't need theatrics. It doesn't need promises. It's in the quiet, in the patience, in the willingness to sit with someone's truth. And I wasn't used to that, not until him. Ethan's final message. A year after the backyard incident, almost to the day, something unexpected happened. I was stretched out on the couch, Diesel sprawled across my legs like a furry weighted blanket when my phone buzzed. "Ethan, message request. Hey, I know you probably won't respond, but I want to apologize for everything. You deserve better. You really did. I'm sorry I hurt you. I hope you're happy now. I really mean that." I read the message twice, not because I felt anything, but because I was surprised at how completely it didn't affect me. No anger, no shaking hands, no rush of memories. Just nothing. A clean emotional void. I stared at the screen for a long moment, took a breath, and then I deleted the message. No response, no closure conversation, no emotional rehash. Just deletion. Daniel walked into the room a minute later with a bowl of popcorn. "What was that about?" he asked. "Nothing," I said, realizing it was finally true. The Danielle encounter. A few weeks after that, I ran into Danielle, Kayla's old friend, at a gas station. We made eye contact, both froze, then she gave an awkward little wave and approached. "Laura, hey." "Hey." She shifted her weight, looked uncomfortable. "I just want to say, I'm sorry. I didn't know what was going on back then. Kayla told me she was going to hang out with work friends during those girls' nights. I didn't know she—" "It's fine," I said. "You weren't responsible for their choices." She looked relieved, but also sad. "She's not doing great," Danielle said quietly. "Kayla, she lost another job. Ethan isn't doing well either. They're kind of spiraling." I nodded, not out of sympathy, but acknowledgement. People live the consequences they create. "I'm glad you're doing better," she added. "You always seemed like a good person." We said goodbye, and that was the last link to that old chapter. Cleanly severed. The last time I saw Kayla, it happened unexpectedly. at the hardware store, of all places. I was picking up junction boxes and wiring, minding my business, when I heard, "Well, if it isn't St. Laura." Kayla. Her arms were crossed, hair messy, eyes tired. She looked nothing like the smug, glowing girl from a year ago. She looked worn. "What do you want, Kayla?" I asked. "You ruined my life." I almost laughed. "You did that all by yourself." "If you hadn't told my dad." "I didn't tell him anything. He saw you, remember?" She clenched her jaw. "I lost everything because of you." "No," I said evenly. "You lost everything because you couldn't take responsibility for anything." She opened her mouth to argue, then stopped. For the first time, I think she realized she couldn't spin her way out of this. "This isn't who you want to be," I said quietly, "but it's who you chose to be." She looked away, angry tears in her eyes, then walked off without another word. That was the last time I saw her. Mr. Patterson's apology. A couple of months later, I was helping Mr. Patterson replace an outdoor electrical outlet. We worked in comfortable silence, him holding the flashlight, me rewiring the old box. Then, out of nowhere, he said, "I owe you an apology." I paused. "For what?" "For my daughter. For what she did. For the pain she caused you. For bringing chaos to your life." I shook my head. "You don't owe me that. She made her own decisions." "I raised her," he said softly. "Or failed to." "You didn't fail," I replied. "You tried harder than most parents ever would. Sometimes people choose who they're going to be, regardless of how they're raised." He didn't respond immediately. Then he handed me a small envelope. "For your time and your character." I tried to refuse, but he insisted. Inside was a handwritten note, simple, sincere, and $200. I cashed the money and used it to buy flowers for Daniel. But I kept the note. A year later, what real revenge looks like. My life now, quiet, steady, warm, mine. My business is thriving. I'm considering opening a second location. My crew is loyal and growing. My home, finally, feels like a reflection of me. Diesel sleeps at my feet every night. Daniel makes me laugh in ways I forgot I could. We're building something slow, intentional, real. No games, no secrets, no pressure. Just two whole people choosing each other. The final thought and the twist of truth. Sometimes life gives you a gift wrapped in fire. Sometimes the worst moment of your life, the moment that breaks you, shatters you, humiliates you, is actually the one that saves you from a much bigger disaster. If I hadn't opened that back door, I would have married Ethan. Combined finances, put his name on my house, given him everything he could have drained. I thought I was unlucky that day, but looking back, I was lucky. Lucky to see the truth before it destroyed me. Lucky to walk away early. Lucky to rebuild a life that was stronger without them. Real revenge isn't screaming. It's not plotting. It's not watching them fall apart. Real revenge is this. I wake up every morning at peace. I go to work I built with my own two hands. I come home to a life I love, to a man who respects me, to a dog who greets me at the door like I'm the whole world, to silence that feels safe, not empty. While